Today I'm making the sniper rifle from Team Fortress 2. For this build, you'll need cardboard tubes, a 1/2 inch PVC pipe, a 1/4 inch PVC pipe, EVA foam, hot glue, white glue, sponge brushes, razor pens, scissors, a rotary tool, a dust mask, a black marker, an old wire, and paint. It's hard to find accurate measurements for TF2 weapons, so I just cut the PVC at 29 inches. I drew the shape of the handle onto a sheet of EVA foam and cut it out. Then I flipped it over to trace another side and cut that out. Rather than wasting foam by cutting another large piece, I hot glued scrap pieces to fill the gap in the middle. I decided not to make a working trigger for this prop, but if you want yours to, then check out my scattergun tutorial. I show you how to do that in that one. I smoothed out the edges with my rotary tool. Then I cut and hot glued the stock out of foam. I attached it to the back of the handle and smoothed out the edges. You have to coat all the foam parts in at least 5 layers of glue before you paint it. I'm not going to go into this because I'll end up saying the same thing in every single tutorial. So if you want to know more about this, then just check out my flamethrower build. I go into a lot of detail about how you're supposed to seal foam and glue in that one. I'm filling in all the gaps and mistakes with green putty. You don't have to use green. You can use any kind of putty that solidifies. This is just what I happen to buy. I also want to mention that the more time you spend on this, the better it'll come out looking. So if you have no deadline, really take your time. You can even make the handle out of real wood instead of foam. I used my narrow rotary tool to cut these openings in the top of the barrel. Take your time or this will happen, and you'll have to waste more time fixing it. The top structure is made out of EVA foam and a 1/4 inch PVC pipe. I used the wider foam for that bracket with the holes in it. It's just easier to sand. So X-Acto knife blades dull out real fast when you're using foam. And you can see I had to sand this a lot with my rotary tool because the dull blade just really tore up that foam. When I finished the structure, I hot glued it to the top of the barrel. I made that crazy scope on top out of multiple cardboard tubes. Oh yeah, I just found out that I get European Netflix, so I've been binge watching Stargate Atlantis while building this. I cut these strips of foam, which I then rolled up, hot gluing the ends to form more tubes for the scope. I slid them over the cardboard and hot glued them down. I did this a lot. I used scrap foam to make that little detail piece. I had to make more brackets and attach them to the scope because they'll end up being a different color than the gun. I made all these little knobs and bolts for detail pieces by tracing and cutting coins or pressing a pen casing into the foam and cutting it that way. It's the same method I used to make the bolts in the droid tutorial. The cover for the scope is just the lid of the can. I made this part out of foam and cardboard, then attached it to the gun. The bolt is made out of scrap foam that I heat formed and then coated in glue. I painted the scope cover black. Once all the layers of white glue were dry, I painted the scope green. Using sandpaper, I sanded the green putty on the stock and then applied more layers of white glue to seal up the areas of exposed foam. I attached the cover to the scope and used a marker to color the other end black. I built a special paint box to keep the paint from getting on my building, and then I painted the metal parts of the gun gray. Don't forget about the bolt. You can't paint it effectively once it's inside the barrel, so that's why you gotta paint it separately. After the paint dries, mask off those areas and paint the handle brown. Once all the paint was dry, I attached the scope and used the wire from a broken phone charger to connect some of the detail pieces. I used hot glue to attach the wire to the scope at various stress points, and then I used medical tape as more of a decorative adhesive because I felt that it added to the TF2 aesthetic. I cut pieces of plastic to create fake lenses for the scope. And there you go, one TF2 sniper rifle. Yeah. Okay, real quick, people who understand guns will be able to tell pretty quickly that this is fake, but as I've discovered by my current living circumstances, a lot of people don't understand how guns work, and they could mistake this for something that's real. So to be safe with this, don't take it outside without taking the proper precautions, alright? I mean, that's part of why I built that whole paint box that has lids that you can open up in sections so that people can't see what I'm working on. So seriously, be smart, okay? Cool beans. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can check out some of my other prop tutorials and subscribe to see new props and the short films that I put them in. Alright, there we go. Jake out.